The scream never came from her lips, yet the terror in her eyes said everything. It was the kind of fear that freezes the body and steals the voice, especially when danger presses close enough to swallow hope. On a quiet stretch of railway near the edge of town, a little girl sat, trembling, her hands tied, her face streaked with dirt and tears. The sun was lowering, its orange glow slipping behind the trees, and the distant vibration of steel humming through the tracks was the only warning of what was coming. No one knew she was there. No one except a police dog, whose instincts had turned alarmingly sharp the moment he picked up her scent. What began as a normal patrol would soon transform into a race against time that none of them would forget. If you believe in kindness and second chances in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Officer Daniel Harris had been on countless evening patrols, but that night carried a strange heaviness he couldn't explain. His K9 partner Rex, usually calm and focused, had been restless from the moment they left the station. Rex kept sniffing the air, whining softly every few minutes as though trying to warn his handler of something neither of them could see yet. Daniel trusted Rex with his life. The dog had saved him more times than he could count. So when Rex suddenly jerked his leash and began pulling with an intensity Daniel had never seen, he knew something was terribly wrong. The dog wasn't following a simple scent. He was following desperation. They were near the abandoned tracks, a place children were warned never to go alone. Rex kept running ahead, only to turn back to make sure Daniel was following closely, his body tense, ears sharp, tail stiff with urgency. Daniel felt unease grow in his chest, but he pushed it aside, focusing on Rex's instincts. The air smelled colder there, and the world seemed to quiet as if holding its breath. The last sliver up, sunlight faded, leaving the place drenched in shadows. That was when Rex suddenly froze, his body dropping low as he stared ahead. Daniel rushed forward, and the sight that greeted him made his heart pound violently. A little girl sat on the tracks, her legs bound, her wrists tied tightly with coarse rope. She wasn't gagged, but fear had stolen her voice completely. Her eyes were wide, terrified, silently begging for help. Daniel felt shock ripple through him. Someone had left her here. Someone had tied her deliberately on active tracks where trains passed every evening. The realization stabbed him like ice. He dropped to his knees and reached for her, but Rex remained alert, sniffing the air, scanning the surroundings as though danger still lingered nearby. The girl's small body trembled as Daniel gently cut the ropes. She clung to him desperately once freed, her whole body shaking with relief, fear, and exhaustion. Just when he lifted her into his arms, a low thunder rolled beneath them. Daniel felt the vibration travel up his spine. The train was coming. It wasn't far. The rails hummed louder, sharper, growing with terrifying speed. Daniel sprinted with the girl held tightly against his chest, Rex running beside him with the speed of pure instinct. Gravel scattered under their feet as they ran up the small embankment towards safer ground. The sound of the approaching train grew into a roar behind them, but Daniel didn't look back. He felt the momentum of the air shift as the train blasted past just seconds after they cleared the tracks. The wind struck them hard, but nothing mattered more than the little girl clinging to his shirt. They made it. Barely, but the real terror had only begun to unfold. The girl was still trembling when Daniel set her gently in the patrol car. Her eyes darted at every sound, her breaths shallow and fast. Rex sat beside her on the seat, nudging her softly, trying to calm her. For a moment, the only comfort she found was in the warm presence of the dog who had found her. Daniel had seen trauma before, but never in someone so young, never in someone who looked so lost. She didn't speak, not a word, but her silence wasn't the silence of a child who didn't want to talk. It was the silence of a child who couldn't. They took her to the station where officers gently tried to find out who she was. She still wouldn't speak, but she watched Rex with big, fearful eyes that softened only slightly when he sat beside her. Rex refused to leave her side, even resting his head on her lap whenever she began to tremble. It was as though he understood her pain, as if something connected them on a level deeper than words. Hours later, after checking missing child reports and community alerts, the truth began to sift out from the shadows. The little girl's name was Emily. She had been missing for almost 30 hours. Her mother, frantic and nearly out of her mind with worry, rushed to the station the moment she was notified. But the truth of what had happened to Emily struck the officers harder than the rescue itself. Emily hadn't wandered off. She hadn't been lost. She hadn't run away. She had been taken by someone she knew. Her mother's ex-boyfriend, a man who had once seemed perfectly harmless, had a long history of aggression that the mother had tried to move on from. She had filed complaints before, but he would disappear, then reappear suddenly, manipulating and threatening her life quietly, unseen by the court. When Emily had witnessed one of his violent outbursts, he had sworn she wouldn't speak of it. Emily's mother had been trying to get full protection, but before she could complete the process, the man had taken Emily, and when the mother had realized her daughter was gone, panic had frozen her. She thought he would bring Emily back once he calmed down. She didn't think he would escalate. She didn't think he'd ever hurt a child. But he had left Emily tied to active train tracks, perhaps to scare her mother, perhaps something far worse. The weight of the truth crushed the room. Emily still said nothing when her mother held her. She didn't trust her voice, didn't trust her world. The only one she allowed near her without fear was Rex. The dog stayed close, nudging her hand gently whenever she drifted into another wave of panic. His presence anchored her. Slowly, over hours, Emily's fingers curled into his fur. That simple gesture was the first sign of recovery. But the story didn't end with Emily's rescue. The officers immediately began searching for the man responsible. The trail was cold and scattered, but Rex remained by Emily's side, refused to rest until she fell asleep on the soft blanket they had given her. Only then did Rex slip away to assist the officer. It was as if he understood there was more work to do. That saving Emily wasn't enough. He needed to ensure she stayed safe forever. Rex picked up the man's scent from the ropes left at the tracks. Daniel trusted Rex implicitly, and when the dog began leading them through the forest at the edge of town, the officers followed without hesitation. Hours later, in a small abandoned storage building, they found the man hiding. He tried to flee. It didn't work. Justice followed swiftly. Rex returned to the station with Daniel, just as Emily woke up. She lifted her head slowly, her eyes scanning the room anxiously until she saw Rex. The moment she saw the dog, her expression changed. Fear loosened its grip just enough for a hint of safety to return. She reached out with trembling hands, and Rex walked to her calmly, sitting beside her as though taking his place in her world again. The officers watched in silence, their hearts heavy yet relieved. Emily's recovery would take time, months, maybe even years, but she had survived something unimaginable. And part of that survival was owed to a dog whose instincts had been stronger than fear, stronger than hesitation, stronger than anything standing between him and the child who needed him most. Weeks later, Emily returned to visit Rex. She wasn't the same girl who had arrived shaking and silent. She still carried fear, but she also carried gratitude. She ran into Rex's waiting paws, hugging him so tightly that even Daniel felt his eyes sting. For the first time since the night she was rescued, Emily whispered a word, barely audible, but filled with pure sincerity. "Thank you." It wasn't directed at the officers or her mother or the world. It was for Rex. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more true, emotional, and inspiring stories to life. Before the video ends, comment below, should Rex receive a National Hero Award? Some heroes walk on 2 legs, others walk on 4. But every hero leaves a mark that time cannot erase, and Rex had left his in a child's life forever.